Good leg up.
Like air guitar.
There it is.
There it
We're
is.
live. We're live. All right.
Everyone.
Music. Listen up. Listen to the fade. I figured it out. Look at that.
Whoa. It's like every week we get better.
The biggest technological hurdle we just surpassed. So
all right. Good night, everyone. Thanks for showing
an
up.
official show. We're an official show at this point.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And finally, we got someone coming on, and good friend of mine, and has been helping me tremendously throughout my real estate career. Tons of questions, especially when it all comes to like the legal questions and everything. So I asked him, a couple weeks ago if he can get on it with us, and he said absolutely. So, Mike, hit the button for Derek Donnelly.
Our next thing is a drum roll sound effect. I gotta find one.
Yeah.
We don't have one, but there we go.
There
Hey, everybody.
All right.
That was quite the introduction.
Yes. Well, hey, it's much deserved because you are a wealth of knowledge and definitely have gotten me out of hot water. So you gotta give credit what it's due.
Better than getting you into hot water.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. So,
well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on. Derek is an attorney for anyone that doesn't know him, and he works with us to close out properties and do other things. Like he's going to be putting a couple of properties in an LLC for me and my wife next week, and he's a great person to deal with. Well,
thanks.
Dan, go ahead. Dan's got a couple questions he's going to ask, and
sure.
Derek's
got So what I really wanted to get into today and have you talk about is something that it always like is a surprise to my clients, like right at first, right? And it's always something that's like it can really hold people back from buying, and that's closing costs, right? Because everyone thinks when they're about to buy a house, they're thinking about down payment, not the closing costs. And when they see the closing costs, they're like, what happened here? And now we can tell them a little bit like, hey, this is what to expect. If they ask for a range, which I would never tell them a range, but I could tell them what goes into closing costs. A lender might be able to tell what goes in on their end, but ultimately in Connecticut, you are the one who finds out the final closing cost. So as a buyer, just want to talk about what goes into closing costs, how you guys calculate it, where the numbers come from, and how much the numbers might shift from, the beginning to the end of the process. And then we'll go into the seller because I know you got a great little widget. So.
Yeah, sure. Well, again, thank you. I mean, so let me just start with this. I think the most interesting thing is that when people are buying in Connecticut, particularly if they've lived in other states and they're coming here, and I know, Dan, you work with a lot of members of the military who maybe they're coming here for the first time. They settle down. Connecticut's a nice place to live. They decide to buy a home here. And the first thing that surprises them, even before the closing costs, is that they need an attorney. So Connecticut is a attorney closing state. There's a couple different ways people do this. In some states, the title company closes the loan directly without an attorney. In some places, the title company closes with an attorney, and Connecticut is one of those. It's an attorney state. So whenever you're purchasing a home, you're going to be recommended to buy title insurance on that property for a bunch of different reasons. No matter how much due diligence is done, it's always impossible to know, if there's anything out there that could be a cloud on the title, could create a problem for you later on. We're lucky in Connecticut. We have a sort of a system that prevents a lot of title fraud that you see in other states. But it doesn't mean that there can't be liens and things like that attached to it. And I start there because that really is the stuff that drives closing costs, right? So yes, if you're working with a lender is going to give you a quote. If you're working with an attorney's office who does work with the local lenders, like our office does, they generally have our fees sort of estimated in there, and they'll tell you what those might be as part of your closing, right? But if you're buying cash, or maybe you're buying through a credit union, or a lender who doesn't do a lot of work in the area, you probably don't have a sense of what the closing costs are. So generally speaking, whether you're using a lender or not, your closing costs on a purchase are going to be the cost of a title search, right? Because before we can prepare all the deeds and the documents and things like that, we need to take a look at the title, both the chain of title and also what the meets and bounds are of the property, what sort of liens might be attached to it. And then from there, we start preparing the documents with the seller's side. The other thing, as part of that, in addition to the title search, we're going to help you acquire title insurance through a title insurance agency that we work with. We work with CADIC, who is a Connecticut Attorneys Title Insurance Company. And that's the vast majority of the title writing in Connecticut is done through CADIC. You might see some other really good companies like Stewart Title, First American. There's some other good ones out there as well. But the vast majority of us work with CADIC. So we'll have the title search done. We'll get a commitment for that title insurance policy, and those things both come with costs. So typically a title search, and like everything else in life, things are getting more expensive. So I used to tell people a title search would be between $100 and $200. We now look at title searches more to the tune of like $300, in the $300 range, right? There's just more expenses. Towns are charging more for the copies. If there's a probate estate involved or something like that, that $300 might be $500 because those copies cost more at the probate court. It's literally as simple as that. But so typically, I tell people about $350 for a title search. Okay. That's like, in our case, that's not something our office does. We're not whacking you that fee or anything like that. We're calling CADIC and ordering the title search through there because it's going to make it cheaper for you to get your title insurance policy, right? So that's number one. Number two, there can be expenses that are fronted by the attorney's office, right? So when you hire an attorney to do your closing, we spend a fair amount of money on things like the title search from the title insurance company, but also things like if you're buying a condo, you might have a condo packet that we have to purchase from the condo management company, and that could be a couple $100. So that's something that is a little extra that could come up. If you're working with a lender, they're going to look for a closing protection letter, which is something that protects them from the time the title is issued and the mortgage is actually recorded. And that typically is like a $40 or $50 fee. So as you can see, it doesn't seem like it should take a lot, but right off the bat, we're quickly adding up fees, back of the napkin math. Realistically, we're probably up to, $400 or $600 right now. And that's before you get the title insurance and you get the, what I call incidentals, things like wire transaction fees, overnight fees, things like that, and also the attorney fee. Typically in Hartford County for attorney's fees, you're pretty much looking at a range between $900 and probably $1,500 for a buyer's side transaction. For a long, long time, our office sort of held firm at underneath the $1,000 mark. We've now had to slip above that slightly because things are getting more expensive. What we don't do is bill hourly like they might do in other counties in Connecticut, where all of a sudden your fees could be, your attorney's fees could be, $3,000 or $4,000 for a closing. We try to hold those down and make things as affordable for you as we can. And then, like I said, there's the title insurance. Now, if you're buying a property and you're going through a lender, the lender is going to require you to buy them title insurance. Okay. And that's going to be tied to the cost of the property. Typically what we would do is we'd also recommend you get an owner's title policy, because for a few dollars more, you can cover not just the bank, but your own interest. Title insurance is kind of interesting because it's not like insurance we usually deal with, like homeowners insurance, right? Homeowners insurance you pay every year, it covers you for that year. Title insurance is something you buy when you purchase a property and you have it for the duration of the time you own the property. So it's a one-time fee and it protects you against any title issue that may come up. And for years, people would say, well, do I need title insurance? Do I need title insurance? And a lot of attorneys would give them the good and the bad, and then let them make a choice. When you come to my office, we say yes, 100% of the time you need title insurance, because it's always those ones where people don't get the title insurance where it tends to be a problem, right? Yeah. And no matter what we do, as far as looking at the title and things like that, we can never really know, right, without going out and having a survey done, whether or not somebody paved over part of your driveway or built a fence on your land, or you're the previous owner built a fence on someone else's land, or one I just dealt with, that shed that was in the back was 3 feet to the wrong side, right? And while those all kind of seem like trivial things, correcting that stuff becomes a very expensive problem. And the title insurance, like your homeowner's insurance, steps in, protects you. If there's a lawsuit, they defend you in that lawsuit. And more importantly, they try to work out a way to resolve those problems. So, like I said, we always recommend that. So it's tricky to give you an estimate on what the title insurance would be because it's so tied to the cost of the property. Typically, when we're looking at, sort of median house prices around here, and right now it's like everything else, those numbers have gone up, but we're looking at, probably a median price right now, of just under $400,000. And typically on that, we're looking at title insurance premiums, somewhere around, in the probably $1,700 to $2,500 range, depending on where we are, and the value of the property. So, it's not a huge amount of money, but when you're pinching your pennies to get your down payment together, and believe me, I have been there, every dime helps. So, what I would suggest that anybody do is make sure they talk to a bunch of different attorneys, right? Make sure that they get good quotes on what people are expecting those closing costs to be. Talk to guys like you who are working with lenders all the time, have a good sense of who's got the better deals and the quicker turnarounds, and holds their attorneys to numbers that work. And then at the end of the day, make a decision. Maybe not just based on price, but also based on, who's answering your questions, who's getting you the information, and those sorts of things, because all of that factors in. Dan and I talk about this all the time. The closings that are easy for anybody, right? It's the closings that something goes wrong that, you want somebody who's going to step in and get you across the finish line.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, good people you need a good team. You need a good lender. You need a good attorney. You need an agent that's working on your behalf. If you don't have that, you're at risk.
Yeah, it's the attorney that answers the phone, or the office, at the very least, answers the phone and gets back to you pretty promptly. When people, especially a buyer, hears a problem and it's their first time buying a home, they're going to call me up and they're going to go, "What's going on? What's going on?" It's like, all right, it's towel off. We'll be all right. Get you on the phone. If that problem is solved in a day or less, that's who they want to go with, and that's 100% of the time. No one's going to have a problem paying an extra $100 to $200, knowing that they're going to get the best person, representing them. So,
yeah, that's a really good point too, because it's not just the call back, right? It's the call back at 9:00 at night when you sent the email and you're panicked about whether or not you're closing in a couple days, and if your kids are going to sleep in their new bedroom on Friday night, and if you've got to move the movers around, and if things are wrong or do go wrong, you want to have those conversations early and learn about what your options are, And I agree. I mean, that team, Mike, that you mentioned is so important for that stuff. And when you can get a hold of your, broker, when you can get a hold of an agent, when you can get a hold of your lending team, or somebody on your lending team, the point person, the originator, whatever, that's really when when something goes wrong, you're gonna have the answers to and have people working in your corner to fix it.
Yeah.
You developed, well, I think it was you. I mean, you sent it to me via email. You or your team developed you called it a widget, some sort of calculator that for the seller side, basically what they can net, on a closing. What kind of just goes into that now on the seller side, because obviously it's important for the buyers, but the sellers want to know how much they're making, because if they're buying another property, like, well, what am I going to make? And they just do the simple, I'm selling for 400,000. I buy in a house for 500,000. I make,
Right.
So what else goes into the seller side that they could think of? And I know I sent it to my sellers, what you sent me, and it always helps them out too. So.
We just did a very sort of simple, I kind of call it the back of the napkin math on the closing for the seller side, and essentially allows you to sort of enter in your sale price or what you expect your sale price to be. I know, like, when I have, my wife and I sold a house, and what do we do, right? We're looking to buy a new place. We wanted to know where we're having conversations about what we were going to list at, and what we were going to walk away with, and those sorts of things. And actually, it was through that experience when I first did this that I said, boy, this would be helpful for agents to be able to get out to their people, right? So it's a little different on the seller side. The seller is paying the real estate commission. The seller has to pay in Connecticut a transfer tax of 1%. There's attorney's fees on their side as well. And there's miscellaneous costs that come into play, adjustments and things like that. We also, on the seller side, we tend to track releases of payoffs, which is sort of a newer development, but we want to make sure that those banks are actually taking your money and releasing your mortgage from the land records. So we use tracking services now to do that. Incidentally, if they forget to and 60 days go by, they start owing you $250 a week. So it's a good idea for us to track that and keep an eye on those things.
But that's come up.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, what we try to do is give you a sense, and I'm looking at one right now. I just plugged in $400,000, and I know that at the end, at the net on that is the seller would be looking at $376,005. Now that's before a mortgage payoff. So let's say that same seller also has a $175,000 mortgage on their house, and you can use your most recent mortgage statement to give you a good guesstimate of where that would be. It's always going to be a little different, but it gives you a good idea. So we know in that scenario, $175,000 mortgage, $400,000 sale price, you're looking at the seller walking away with $195,605, right? And like I said, why this has been so helpful is, Dana lets you send it to your sellers, give them some reasonable expectations. It helps everybody in the process if everyone knows what they're doing. But it also might, if you're really kind of thinking about where you're going to list at price wise, and you're going back and forth, and it might give you as an agent a little added incentive to say, hey, look, not only do I think we should go, instead of 400 to 4099, right? Here's what it looks like at 4099 versus 400. Right. Or, we want to get to 400. So if we start at the 4099 and we get, things don't go, there's a wacky market, right? So, if we know we have to, so we know what our fallback position is, right? So I think it's a great tool both for agents and for obviously for sellers to get a good idea where they are.
Absolutely, because I use it again, like I said, for my sellers, and because 95% of them are buying another house in Connecticut through me, whether it's upgrading, downgrading, whatever the case may be, and that's just plugging in now where they're their down payment, can they make sure they afford the closing costs? What's their max cap that they can do, and a lot goes into it. So it's just it's a great tool. I appreciate you even sending it to me so I can use it, because I use the crap out of it. I can lie. I even use it for myself. Like I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go in here and see what I'm looking at. So
great.
Yep. But very good, very good. Mike, did I miss anything?
No, it was good. It's good. It's one of the most asked questions of what a closing cost is going to be from a buyer, and what am I going to net after all said and done as a seller. So yeah, you covered everything that the most pressing questions for attorneys. Another one I get quite a bit, and I say the attorneys really just have to agree, is closing date. Who sets the closing date? When we write a contract, there's always a closing date in the contract. It almost never ends up actually being on that date. And a lot of people ask why. And what would your answer to that question be?
Yeah. So I'll give you the short answer and the long answer. So the short answer is the bank decides, right? Because really what happens is the bank is working towards getting the borrower a clear to close, and the clear to close generally comes 3 days before the closing, right? Hopefully a little longer than that, but generally speaking, that's it. And the borrower has to sign a closing disclosure on that date. 3 days then have to pass, and then they get to close. Now, some exceptions to that, I won't kind of get into that, but generally speaking, that's what we're working for. And every bank, every lender that's good, I mean, they're working towards that contract close date that you set in your real estate contract. But a lot of things can happen that dictate, when things actually close. And as a result, the closing date we call in Connecticut soft, right? Every contract has a soft closing date in it. Connecticut courts have gone so far as to say you could go 2 weeks past that closing date and not be out of contract, right? No one's breached the contract. As long as you're working towards closing, that date's soft. Now, some exceptions to that too. But yeah, so the short answer is the lender. The long answer is there's a lot of other factors that are going to play into those things. I mean, I've had some of the craziest reasons why things haven't closed that you could ever imagine. From lost overnight packages to buying a car. I see. On the
I was going to say that. Or it's in place, right? Right there.
That's right. So Chris Piccoli is another local agent we work with sometimes. Yeah. And Chris and I have had that experience before where, a borrower goes out and does something to their credit inadvertently. They're moving. I've had this one happen so many times, but a borrower goes out to buy a new washer and dryer for the house so they can have it delivered on the day of the closing. And the guy at Home Depot or PC Richards or whatever says, hey, you don't even have to pay cash for this. Why don't you just open up our new card at 0% interest? And they're like, oh, this is a great deal. But the problem is they're opening a line of credit, which is going to screw up their whole closing. And they re-verify income and all of those things. I cannot tell you how often that happens. So, look, we've seen it all. There's a bunch of things can dictate closing dates. Again, I think the important thing there is to just be in contact with everyone. So, you don't get yourself in a situation where you've spent a bunch of money on movers and, have to cancel or don't have the ability to move those dates around and things like that.
Yeah. So that's what I always say is the 2 weeks. I always tell everybody 2 weeks. Yeah. Yep. I don't know. Somebody told me that. I don't know. 15, 17 years ago now. And that's always what I've gone with. As far as like extensions and contract, this is not at all what anyone wants to hear. But me as an agent want to hear, if it's going to close a week later, should we get an extension to that closing date on the contract, or is it fine? Is the, that 2 week statute, or not statute, but soft closing that Connecticut is going with, Is that okay?
Yeah, I always tell people two things with that. The first time things move, I always say it's probably a good idea to do the extension.
Okay.
The second or third time things move, then you really have to pause and have a conversation with your attorney and find out why, right? And make sure there's not, make sure there's not some red flags out there that maybe this won't close or whatever. The other thing too, though, a lot of lenders are going to say, hey, look, we can't move this around until we have an extension. It depends on the lender and their underwriting conditions. So, and particularly on VA loans, FHA loans, I mean, those things are always papered to the hilt. So, and something like that, you may not have a choice. If you're a seller, you may just have to sign that extension to keep your buyer in the game. So, So always on the first one, I always say after that, talk to the lawyer.
Good. Always rather have an attorney answering questions anyway about stuff like that. What I say often doesn't go.
I was going to say, can't talk
this has happened before, but
it's the second time. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
It's cool. Oh, awesome.
Hey, got anything exciting going on, Derek, in the real estate? What you hear anything about these lawsuits, the buyer agent compensation lawsuits? Have you guys heard anything of that from whatever bodies are advising you guys on stuff?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's following it is the answer. So it should be pretty interesting to see where things shake out. I mean, there's a couple of things in that haven't sat right with a lot of people for a long time. And you guys have probably seen these when all of a sudden another agency charges a management fee or, things like that are just sort of outside of the usual. And I think that stuff has gone up quite a bit the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see, where things kind of compromise out to in the industry. But I went down to a conference the other day in early December, a security conference. We work with a company called Certified, that allows us to both send wire instructions securely, collect wire information securely, and also to validate payoffs so that, we're doing the most we can do to protect our clients' money before it leaves our custody. So, it was kind of interesting to hear the perspective on, national trends from a conference, really from people all over the country, title companies, real estate agents, attorneys. So I found that really, really fascinating. And I think the vast majority of people kind of felt that, weird market, hard to predict. But boy, it does sort of look like things are looking up. And particularly from the refinance side, which doesn't really affect you guys all that much. But I always tell people refinances are a good sign because once people start refinancing, and the rates are lower and things like that, that is sort of the precursor to another sort of movement in the market as far as home sales go. So I'm cautiously optimistic about how 2024 is going to look. And hopefully we see some rates coming down, which, gets prices sort of moving again and people more willing to look and move around and those sorts of things. So, weird year this year. I mean, but at the end of the year, our office is still going to do, bigger numbers than we did in 2019 or 2018 or 2017. Yeah. So, it's I think I have 7 closings tomorrow on the last business day of the year. So,
nice.
It's all looking up from our perspective. So
yeah, I think 24 is going to be better too. A lot of the slow conditions are people are just hesitant to buy. They've been hesitant to sell. They've been hesitant to buy. Rates have been, up for a while now. People come into the market mentally, oftentimes 6 to 12 months before they actually transact, before they get serious about buying a house. And, interest rates are edging down from when these people started looking at, and they're not coming into the process looking for a 3% mortgage like people were 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So I think buyers are gonna just buy more often or move up. They're going to move up. People are ready to move up. There's a pent up demand. People have been in houses for a while. I think the average person stays in a home or the average loan is, I forget what Roger said, 6 years, 5 years or something like that. The average loan is in place.
Wow.
A lot of that stuff, people that haven't refinanced in the last 2 years or haven't moved on when they normally would, I think a lot of that's going to come to head in 24. And
yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing too, and I've been telling a lot of people this at closing, you'll get somebody in there and they'll lament their rate, their sub 7 interest rate or whatever. And I will tell them that, look, in 2012 or 2013, the idea of getting a rate under 7% was like, you'd be high-fiving everybody at the table. It's just, we got very spoiled in 2020 and 2021 and, the beginning of 2022 with where the rates were. And we sort of reset the standard. We looked at, the course of my career. And I think the average, the median point, not the average, but the median point was just under 7, right?
Wow.
And the average was actually a little bit lower than that, obviously skewed downward from the last couple of years, but it was like 5.5. So, I mean, if you're getting, closings tomorrow with folks in the 6s, I mean, you basically had a rate that, your friends, you'd be telling your friends about at dinner parties on the weekends. So, look, we're getting back to reality a little bit, and hopefully we'll see some low numbers again. But more importantly, we're getting back to sustainable interest rates that people can afford. So, and that means if you bought in the last year, you're probably going to refinance. If you bought if you're looking to buy, you're looking at better rates next year than you could have gotten this year. So all positive stuff.
Hoping we get to a balanced market finally.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 17 years now, and we're up, we're down, we're up, we're down. We haven't gone through a long stretch of a balanced market, balance between buyers and sellers for anyone that's what I'm meaning by that. It's been a long time. It'd be nice to get there. We got a ways to go. It's still pretty heavy sellers right now in our area, which it's not in different areas of the country, but we didn't see the massive run up like a lot of places in the country do. We're good, steady market that moves forward, and when the economy takes a hit and when places are going down, we're still inching up slowly. So
good land of steady habits.
Yeah. Got anything else, Dan, for Derek? No,
I could listen to him talk all day. Told you, welcome.
You're very kind, Dan. You're very kind.
We've got 7 closings tomorrow, Derek. You should save your voice. So it'll be a busy day for you.
That's for sure. I'm still at the office, as you can see. So that was not for you guys.
Well, hey, I appreciate taking the time out.
Yeah,
of course.
All
right, guys.
That's Chris's favorite attorney.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Another vote of confidence. Thanks, Chris. All right, Derek. We'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot.
Guys.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.
He's just awesome.
Yeah.
Wealth of knowledge, man. Good stuff.
So how are you, Dan? We didn't do our normal. We wanted to get Derek on here so we could get off because we knew we had a busy day tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we didn't have our normal intro banter. We're doing it 33 minutes in. How are the holidays?
We're in no man's land right now. I don't know what day it is. The in-laws came in today. I'm like, what day is it? Like, I'm thinking about just stuff coming up, and I'm like, I don't even know when the weekend is. So this has been like the only thing that's been holding my week normal.
It's a Thursday because we're live.
Right.
So, although we're not going to be live next Thursday. But Wednesday, we'll be on next Wednesday, hopefully, during the day, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We can pull that off.
But we've been wanting to we've been talking a little bit about the Perfect Home Finder for a while. We're ready to really kind of fully launch that. We're going to kind of introduce it to everybody in 2 parts. We'll go over it a little bit this week, a little bit more next week. We'll go into depth of the process next week. But we've got fancy presentation right here.
Oh,
Everybody loves a presentation.
it's the only way to buy a home.
You know, I looked up. All right. So at the top of my screen, I can see how many people were watching. And there were 5. There were 5. And as soon as I brought this up, it went to 2. So
Yeah.
we lost 60% of our audience.
Now
Right
they're trying to sell us something. Can't believe it.
yeah. Yeah.
Which is not the case. Okay.
Of course not the case. Of course. We don't want to sell houses. We don't want to do any business at all, you know? Yeah. So, but we believe that what we're doing with our Perfect Home Finder system is really the only way to buy a house in 2024. We'll only got a couple of slides here. We'll go through. You know, Dan's going to talk a little bit, and then I'll talk a little bit about the points, and then we'll go ahead and do the same thing next week when we really get into the process.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you're going to hit the points, but basically, what it is I want to meet every one of my buyers' needs and wants in a home when they do a home search, i.e., bedrooms, i.e., bathrooms. You know, maybe the size of the house, obviously the town, things like that. I want to know this stuff because I'm targeting specifically for you. So the more that I can get, the more information I can get from you, the better I can find something for you. And the idea here, as it's not on this page, is going to be on the next, or even in a couple days. But we're trying to take the stress off you to stop going up against 25 other offers like one of my clients just did, last week, 2 weeks ago. So in a nutshell, this is what I'm trying to do. And Mike, obviously for his clients, for you as my buyers, is find exactly what you're looking for. The perfect home, if you will. Huh. So
yeah. What this is not is like a dream home program. I mean, it could be if you're looking for a 4,000 square foot home with 7 bedrooms and a 6-car garage and on 20 acres with a big pool in the back. That's not what we're talking about. It's not like a dream home type scenario. It's whatever home fits what your current needs are. If you are a couple with 2 kids and you work at home, you might want a 4-bedroom home. You might just want something that's a little bit bigger than you have. Something, if you have dogs and you want a fenced-in backyard, a fenced-in backyard makes up your perfect home. If you have an extra car, if you've got a old, I don't know, Corvette in your garage or something. I'm not a car guy at all.
I was wondering what you were going to say.
I'm not a car guy. Or maybe you have a boat that you want a garage for. You might want a 3-car garage. You might want a house that backs up to woods. When we bought our house, all we really wanted was a house that backed up to either woods or open space that wasn't going to be built on. Because I don't want to take care of a big yard, and we wanted the ability to go use, town or city or where it didn't even matter what it was. We just wanted use of an extra property to go
the leaves in the back, and that's it.
That's it. I just want a personal leaf home. That was my perfect home.
You didn't want to pay for a leaf permit. Just say it.
But I do have they're free in Windsor Locks. I don't need to buy a leaf permit.
Yeah, nothing's free.
Anyway, maybe it's an in-law. Maybe what you want is a 3-family house and somebody to pay off your mortgage by having renters in the second floor. It's really whatever fits your current needs, with the ability to expand if something unforeseen happens. If you need to take in a family member, maybe you want a couple kids, maybe both of you are going to start working at home. You have the ability to expand a little bit, so you're not strapped. You don't want to go out and buy a 2-bedroom house if you have two kids and 2 little kids, and then you find out you got to work at home, and then you find out you're going to have a 3rd kid, and then you're forced into selling. Now, in this market, being forced into selling is not a problem at all. You're going to get top dollar, but then you have to buy. If it's not at the right time, you're forced into buying something that you might not want. So that's kind of like the first 2 points of what fits your perfect home. Whatever fits your perfect needs, and you have the ability to expand. You got to have like an exit plan in place. Like, how long are you going to live there? If you're going to live there for 3 years, it might not be the best time to go out and try to put a lot of time and effort into buying your perfect home. If you are 65 years old, you might want to start looking at single floor living, or the ability to maybe put a washer dryer up where your bedroom is on the second floor, and it just avoid having to carry heavy things up and down stairs. You might want to have a place without sidewalks. That was another thing that was important to us. We travel quite a bit and in the winter, and we didn't want to have sidewalks that I was always worrying about. I'm kind of conservative. I like the sidewalks to be completely clear of snow and ice, and it would have been something just in the back of my head. So my house does not have sidewalks. The fourth point, it's got to be affordable. You got to be able to afford the payment of the house, plus the other contingencies that come on. If you lose a boiler, if you need to replace a roof, a lot of times you talk to a lender and they're going to prove you up for sometimes 50-60% more than you'd be willing to spend. I talk to people that want to buy a $300,000 house, but they're approved up to $550,000 or $575,000, and just because the bank will approve you for that doesn't mean you should be buying that at all. Right. So that's really what your perfect home is. It could be something very specific in a specific town, a specific type of house. I'll bring up Windsor Locks because I actually know the numbers. In Windsor Locks, there are 5,200 housing units, the apartments, multifamily houses, single family houses. They're 5,200 units. And if you want to buy a place in Windsor Locks, say 4,000 of them are single family homes. There's so many differences between those homes. If you're able to kind of parse through them, how many 3-car garages would there be in Windsor Locks? Maybe only 125. And if it's important for you to have a 3-car garage and live in Windsor Locks, we've got someone we've got a manageable number of people that we can go out to market to see if any of those people are willing to sell. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're going to the off-market people and putting together deals that way. So why the perfect home finder? It's really the only way to get what you really want. Right now, that second point is no competition. If you're in competition, there are so many buyers. For any house, there are so many buyers right now. You list a house, you're going to get 20 showings right away, and you're going to get multiple offers right away. And unless you're coming over asking, you're going to waive inspections. You're going to bring a lot of cash to the deal. You're willing to pay over and above with the appraisal gap. There's a good chance you're not going to get that house. There's a really good chance. So what this does is you're the only one in the deal. You're the only one that knows the house is up for sale, or, kind of up for sale at this point. And you're the only one that knows. So there's not the competition. You can be flexible with the closing. And like I brought up at least a couple times, my brother, I believe, when he bought his first house, he went under contract in January. He didn't close until June. That's not normal. That is not normal for a situation, for a house that's listed. Normally when someone lists a house, it's because they're ready to go.
And would never fly in this market right now for a house that's on the
market. It wouldn't. But if it's an off-market place where someone is just in the process of considering selling, it's a situation where you could come up with a flexible closing that would work for everybody. It's just a way to put together a deal without somebody else saying, well, I can close right when you want right now, and I'll be willing to pay an extra $10,000 for it. So basically, if you're gonna buy a house, you should start as soon as you know that you're going to buy. It doesn't matter if you're buying 9 months from now. Reach out. Let's open up a conversation. Let's figure out exactly what you want to spend, what your non-negotiables are. Let's come up with that list and start marketing to them. Because somebody that doesn't have their house on the market and is just thinking about, I know multiple people in the last month or probably 2 months that have put their house on the market and taken it right off. Like they weren't really sure if they wanted to buy. They want to sell at some point, but and they even went as far as listing it and pulled it right off. So there's a lot of people out there that just haven't made the move. But if you're able to get in front of them and give them a fair offer with a flexible closing, it's a good chance to wrap up a house that no one else knows is on the market. So we really have 5 steps to buying your perfect home. We're going to go in depth more next week on these. But just in a nutshell, the first 5 steps are the only 5 steps. So figure out exactly what you want. You got to list out everything you want. We've got a questionnaire that I can link below this that will kind of give you some ideas. Think about what you really want. You got to figure out what you really want. And if you don't, you're just in the market with everybody else. You're in competition with everybody else. Figure out how much you want to spend. You talk to a lender, figure out where you want to be. Everything is different. If you're looking at multiple towns, there's a big difference in taxes between, say, my house and a house 1 mile up the road. Huge difference. And even more, you go out to where Dan lives in Simsbury or West Hartford, Avon, there's even a bigger difference there. So your buying power is very different in different towns. So after you figure those 2 things out, we just identify those properties. The 4th step is to reach out to those people and, kind of deploy our strategy. It's partially online, partially offline. It uses social media. Sometimes it uses, mail. Sometimes it uses phone calls. Sometimes even pop-bys. I have stopped at multiple people's houses that really fit. They're kind of people that I've known were, thinking about selling at some point, or really are at the life stage where a lot of people do transact. Haven't put one together that way, but we've gone through really every way in order to contact these buyers successfully. And the 5th is turn those people that do raise their hand into showings for the people and put together a deal. So like I said, we'll go in depth a little bit more on these next week. In a nutshell, that's our Perfect Home Finder program. And in my opinion, and Dan's opinion, it's really the only way to buy a house in 2024.
Yeah. And we're talking about this now, but I've been doing it now for
a while.
It's been working. Helped out.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work from our end. And we didn't really have the ability until we really got some systems down and systems in place to do more than maybe two people at a time. Because it's a lot of work. It's expensive on our behalf. But I really think it's the only way. And it's something
it works. And
it's buyers. Yeah.
Yep. So after a couple of years of grinding it out, this is good. It's a good thing. So
that was a lot of talking. My mouth's dry.
Yeah. No, you did well. You did really good.
Oh, thanks, Dan.
I was like,
yeah.
I'm gonna let Mike take this.
Yeah. So what are we're at? So nobody knows this, but Dan is running 100 miles in the month of December.
Oh yeah.
And we've only got 3 days left? 2 days?
Yeah.
3 days left. How many miles you got left, Dan?
20.
20 miles. 20 miles.
December was a stupid month to try to do.
Month to do it. You got to get way ahead right away. And
I saw this thing on Facebook and I was like, oh, I'll do it. But then I read it wrong. And it's 100 miles of running, biking, or rowing. And I thought it just was running. So I was like, oh, that'd be pretty good. Averages out to about 3.2 miles a day. Not that hard, but when you do it every day, and I try to keep up with other workouts, I have a 2-year-old and an 11-month-old. I got a wife who works these wonky hours. This is not well thought out on my end. So I had to take a few days off because sometimes I'm the only babysitter. And I'm at 20 miles left. So I had to do 5 today and probably like 8 or 10 tomorrow just to keep it going. So
you'll get it. I haven't ran in a long time.
I'm not asking for anyone to feel bad for me. Just feel bad for my knees. Okay.
But I'm going to get out there I think on Saturday. You want to run outside tomorrow on Saturday. Let's knock it off. We'll finish.
I'm not running in the rain. I refuse. So Saturday you can finish it with me on Saturday because that's it, right?
Saturday.
Or is Sunday the last day?
Sunday's the last day.
So much.
Just finish up on Saturday.
Okay.
You got it. Half marathon to finish it on Saturday. That's my plan to watch you finish the half marathon.
Yeah. You're gonna sit in a lawn chair with a mimosa. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
It's late. 50 minutes. We've been on this a long time. A lot of talking.
A lot of
We'll talk.
information, though, man. Like I said, Derek is a wealth of knowledge, and
Yeah, good
the
guy.
rest
And
of
it's
the guy covers it.
privilege. It's a privilege to have somebody on that really has a lot of knowledge, and they're willing to share it. Because like he was saying, a lot of times attorneys do bill by the hour, and we got a half hour of answers and free advice from someone that can command a pretty high hourly wage. So thanks again, Derek. We've got one person listening. I'm sure it's him. I'm sure it's him.
Yeah, he forgot to shut us off.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, that's all I got, Dan.
See you next week.
See you later. Should I fade us out with some music again?
Yes.
Should we? I just want to hit that fade button and ready? Here we go. Out.